In the 1989 movie Field of Dreams starring Kevin Costner, the supernatural success of a corn patch manifested in the construction of a baseball field. If you build it, they will come. The field did indeed become a way for an honest farmer to save his home, but what do you do when you have a nation with a staggering rise in prison population and there's nowhere to put them? What do you do when your magic crop is a field full of failure? 2 months ago, the International Center for Prison Studies, University of Essex World Prison Population Briefing found that the United States remains the leading country with over 2 million people in prison, and it's also it also has the world's highest prison population. The reasons for the alarming population figures in the U.S. are complex, but they stem from tougher sentencing legislation in response to the war on drugs and immigration. This translates to nonviolent offenders, and according to the July 2011 Bureau of Justice statistics, 1 in every 142 Americans is in prison. The Clover investment is exclusively interested in what goes on in Florida. Florida is ranked the 3rd highest in total prison population, with over 98,000 prisoners currently in some level of incarceration. One of the most controversial responses to this has been privatized prisons, because they are an immediate solution and they're touted as being less expensive. And despite being considered a solution, though, there are issues surfacing over the past decade that indicate considerable financial externalities are not realistically being factored in. The United States Government Accounting Office, in fact, concluded that the cost difference between operating a private penal facility and a public is small. And it also leads to the ethical issue regarding the implications of basing the operation of prison purely on profit motivation. So Clover Investments' ethical dilemma differs from that because they must ask, does the good of investing to help alleviate overcrowding in the prison system outweigh its potential harm? Clover presented CCA with a list of 6 criteria. And that criteria was already legally supported by mandates at the state level. The 2 that we found discrepancies with are the requirement for vocational training and education, as well as comprehensive counseling, which we found CCA does offer the PRIDE program, which is offered at the state level. PRIDE stands for the Prison Rehabilitative Industries and Diversified Enterprise. It's a program that, in addition to vocational training, also offers job training and job behavioral training, as well as comprehensive counseling. It's been shown that inmates that participate in the program have a 40% reduction in their recidivism rates. But CCA doesn't offer the PRIDE program at all of their facilities. The second discrepancy is family access. Research is also supporting that the inmates that have families that regularly visit also show almost a 40% reduction in their recidivism rates. But CCA doesn't look at their inmates like that. They look at them like a product. And based on contractual obligations with their investors, they'll move their populations around in order to equally distribute the load, regardless of whether those inmates have a job and regardless of families coming to regularly visit. Now, CCA can easily adjust their standards at the facilities to accommodate Clover's ethical parameters, but we found that in addition to those concerns, we identified an additional concern that had a legal and financial basis.
Corrections Corporation of America is the leader in the industry of the public-private prison industry. They draw profits from prisons all across the nation. So you, Clover Investments, while the prison you invest in might have all of these ethical standards met, your profits will not be purely derived from the single prison. It will be derived from prisons across the nation where pride programs aren't available, where family access isn't available, where people die because they're not getting medical treatment. There was a gentleman in a prison in one state where he was riddled with cancer because he didn't have ready access to medical care. Now, Clover Investments is known for making sound financial decisions, but you are also a leader in the industry for maintaining high business ethical standards. The potential cost to your reputation is very great. Part of being an ethical company is maintaining trust with your consumer. How is your consumer going to be able to continue to trust you if you invest in an industry that goes against the principles that they have known you to stand for?
When Clover Investments brought this project to us here at Titan Consulting, you gave us quite an extensive list of ethics requirements in order for you to invest in this project. We were able to answer most of those ethics questions by the statutes in the state of Florida. The statutes that are already set up took care of most of your concerns when it comes to ethics. There were a few, however, that were not covered by the statutes. The main one being that the way that the money is distributed from CCA, your profits, you would not be able to dictate where that money comes from, because the way CCA does it is they put all of their money into their national company and then they distribute it out to their shareholders. So because of that, while you may be able to negotiate with CCA as to what is going to be happening in the direct facility which you're investing in, which is in Florida, what goes on in Louisiana, because they don't have a pride program in Louisiana, which is important to Clover Investments. You wanted to make sure that the prisoners were being given some kind of training situation. It doesn't happen in a lot of the prisons in Louisiana. You wouldn't have any say-so on that. So that gave us pause. And so our initial recommendation was for Clover Investments to turn down the proposal and not invest. But we also wanted to give you some other recommendations. One of those recommendations could be that you go back to CCA and you say, we want to invest in your company, but because of the way you distribute your funds, we're going to decline it. But maybe you could form a subsidiary company where all of our money would go into the Florida facility and all of our profits would come from the Florida facility. In return for that condition, maybe you would stretch your investment to make it longer, and it would take you longer to get your profits. Another thing that we would also like to suggest is that maybe you could go to some of the other state legislatures around the country where CCA is involved, and because of the shortfalls in budgets around the country and a lot of states wanting to divest themselves of this responsibility of funding the prisons, you partner with CCA, increase your investment to a nationwide situation, thereby giving you a stronger say in what ethically happens at these facilities. We would really like to thank Clover Investments for allowing us to work with you on this proposal.